Turn to Acts the 8th chapter. Acts the 8th chapter. Let's read verses 5 through 9 of this particular passage. Acts the 8th chapter, verses 5 through 9. Then Philip went down to the city of Samaria and preached Christ unto them. And the people with one accord gave heed unto those things which Philip spake, hearing and seeing the miracles which he did. For unclean spirits, crying with a loud voice, came out of many that were possessed with them, and many taken with palsies, and that were lame were healed. And there was great joy in the city. But there was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery, and bewitched the people of Samaria, giving out that he himself was some great one, to whom they all gave heed from the least to the greatest, saying, This man is the great power of God. And to him they had regard, because for a long time he had bewitched them with sorceries. This morning in Bible class, Joshua was looking at this particular passage, looking at commands that are a combination, two commands in one. And there was some question about Simon. And I thought, it kind of struck me then, well, maybe be good to talk about Simon. And so I gathered together some thoughts this afternoon, and I want to tonight and probably next Sunday evening as well, talk a little bit about Simon. What do we know about him? Now, we just read verse 9. In fact, let's just read verse 9 again, and then it might help you to answer the question that I'm about to ask. But there was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery, and bewitched the people of Samaria, giving out that he himself was some great one. All right, now, what are we being told here about Simon? What are we being told here? Just in verse 9. From what we just read, what are we being told here about Simon?
He was not a Christian man, I don't believe, or he wouldn't have been used in sorcery and witchcraft. But everybody thought he was great because of the things he was doing.
Okay, because of the things he was doing. Now, he would become a Christian. We're told here in just a few verses later that he listened to Philip, he believed what Philip had to say, and he was baptized. And so he became a Christian.
Well, I got that he went out of his way to try to make people think he was somebody.
Okay. He went out of his way to try to make people think that he was something.
Yeah.
And that is a very good idea. It's a very good comment. We're actually told here a couple of things in verse 9 about Simon. The first of which we read here in the first part of the verse. God is revealing some things to us about him. You know, we may not know a lot about him, but God is going to reveal some things to us. But there was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery. Now, I want to ask a question. Was his power a real power? Okay. TJ shaking his head no. John said no. Harold shaking his head no. Was his power real?
No, it was trickery.
Okay, it was trickery. How do we know it was trickery?
Because witchcraft and sorcery is trickery.
Okay, because witchcraft and sorcery is trickery. Okay.
And you know, somebody can do magic tricks, and we think they're pretty sharp.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So was that what Simon was doing? Was he doing magic tricks?
I would guess to venture to guess that that's what it was.
Okay. Venture to guess that he was. Well, the answer is yes, he was. We know that by the phrase using sorcery. Okay. By that phrase using sorcery. in the language of the New Testament, magu means to be a magician. To be a magician. So that's what he was. He was not a sorcerer in the thought that many people put to it, but he was simply a magician. Now, what is a magician? How would you explain a magician?
Somebody who does magic.
Okay, somebody who does magic. Okay.
Illusionist.
He is an illusionist. Fantastic. He is an illusionist. You look it up in the dictionary. And this afternoon when I looked it up, I found a definition that I really liked, and I think it was dictionary.com, but don't hold me to that. They defined the word magician as an entertainer. As an entertainer that is skilled at sleight of hand. That is skilled at being deceptive. Now, if you're deceptive, you are what? Well, you are deceiving people. Now, to deceive someone, what do you use to deceive them? You use trickery. You use trickery. How many of you, is there anybody that watches any of the talent shows?
I do.
America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, things of these nature. And every once in a while, I like to, when somebody puts it on Facebook, I like to watch some of the ads. And there's almost always a magician on there. And everybody just stands in awe of the magician. How did he do that? How does he have that power? How does he have that ability? Right now, there's a great contest going on between all the winners called Champions. And one of the finalists is the guy that won America's Got Talent last year, a magician. And he was doing a card trick the other night that really just wowed everybody. And boy, how did he do that? Well, somebody revealed through high-speed camera work what was actually happening. He had a card, somebody picked a card, they wrote their name on it, and then that card all of a sudden disappeared out of his hand and reappeared someplace else inside something. That photography revealed that one card was a darker color than the other card. And so it was nothing more but a trick. But yet, how did he do that? He must have some great ability. He must have some great power. But he is simply an entertainer who uses trickery to deceive people. Is that what Simon was? Simon was simply an entertainer who used trickery to deceive people. So was his power real? No. His power was not real.
But he didn't let them know the trickery. He made them believe it was real.
He let them believe. Okay. What kind of magician would you believe if you told everybody how you did it?
Well, nobody would go watch it.
Nobody would go watch it. How, David Copperfield didn't reveal how he made the Empire State Building disappear. Right? Because nobody would, There was another guy who revealed all the magician's tricks. I don't remember what his name was. But you don't see much of him anymore, do you? But it's deception. It is trickery. But yet he was able to deceive the people. Now, stop and think here for just a minute. We're not going to come to this yet. We'll come to it in just a little bit. How was he able to deceive them? Was he able to deceive them? Yes. How was he able to deceive them? We'll answer that question here in just a couple of minutes. But what else are we revealed here about Simon? God is revealing here, he's a deceiver. He's an entertainer. He's a magician. He is somebody who uses tricks. But what else does God reveal here about Simon in verse 9? What else does he reveal? Anybody want to guess?
Well, big on himself.
Okay, he's big on himself.
Yeah, that's what I say. Two things. It says that he astonished the people when they were amazed at what he'd done, and then he wanted to make himself to be somebody great.
Okay, he wanted to make himself to be somebody great. Here's verse 9 once again. Remind me to go read the simple English for you. I forgot to do that. So I've got another opportunity to do it here in a minute. Verse 9. But there was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery and bewitched the people of Samaria, giving out that he himself was a great one. Giving out. What do you think is meant here by that phrase, giving out?
Sam, tell him.
Huh?
Look at me, I'm good. You're supposed to believe me.
Okay. We got so many answers here. Before I can say good, everybody was giving up it. All fantastic answers. That phrase give out means to bid or to describe or to boast. He was boasting.
One translation says bragging.
He was bragging.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what TJ said. That's fantastic. That is a great answer. He was someone who was bragging. And what was he bragging about?
How great he was.
I'm great. I'm great. He was bragging. I'm a great person. Here's the simple English version. Acts chapter 8, verse 9. However, there was in that city a man named Simon who did magic tricks. That's what I needed to read to you earlier. Who did magic tricks. That's all that he did. He was a magician. His power was not real. Who did magic tricks before Philip came. He amazed all the people of Samaria with those tricks, and Simon boasted and called himself a great man. And called himself a great man. Friends, I stand before you here today and I'm a great pilot. I can fly a plane. I can get behind the stick of a plane and I can just pull that stick and I can make it fly here and make it fly there. I can go all the way around the world. I can do loop-de-loops all around all the other planets. I'm a great pilot. I'm the greatest pilot that ever lived. I can say I'm the greatest pilot, but does that mean I'm actually telling you the truth? No. Well, wait a minute.
I really doubt all
Huh?
that, what you're just telling me.
Oh, you're down all that?
I've never seen you do it.
No.
I really doubt it.
Just because somebody says that they have a great ability, just because somebody brags that they are great, does not mean that what they are saying is the truth. The truth is, I have never been behind the stick of an airplane. I have never flown an airplane. I have flew in an airplane, but I have never flown in an airplane. Now, is that right? Something like that. I have never flown a plane. I am not a pilot. So just because I stand up here and say I am great at something does not mean I have the ability to do that. That's exactly what Simon was doing. He was saying, I am great. He was bragging about himself. You suppose he was bragging about the power that he had? Or that he
Then he was foolish.
wanted to make people think that he had?
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Look what I can do. You know, maybe he did a card trick. Look what I can do. He was bragging. So what are we being told here? Two things. God is telling us he's a fake, and God is telling us he's a bragger. He's a deceiver, and he's a bragger. Was he able to deceive people? Yes. How did he deceive them? By the way, let me throw something in here. We have a lot of people in the world today who kind of like Simon, they brag. And they talk about having a great ability or great power. As I was thinking about this afternoon, I couldn't help but be reminded of a man who came into Parkersburg this past summer and held a great tent meeting there in the traffic circle. Now, where exactly in the traffic circle, I can't picture where. But had a tent meeting there in the traffic circle. And it was one of these healing services. Everybody come and you'll be healed. And he was supposed to have documented proof that he had the ability to heal. I remember reading this past summer a friend had posted on Facebook about a family member that was very ill, not doing well. And somebody posted on there, commented on there, well, you need to go see Pastor so-and-so down at the traffic circle because he has the power to heal, and it's documented. He is, in other words, bragging through whatever documents he had to try to prove that he had this great ability. Well, you know what, friends? I got documentation too. I have got greater documentation than he has. And this documentation tells me he doesn't have that ability. He doesn't have it. Why were miracles done during the New Testament? Why were miracles done? To confirm the Word. Why was there prophecies shared in the New Testament that we read of? Why was there prophecies? To confirm the Word and to tell what the Word was going to be, because this hadn't been written. There was prophecies. There was knowledge that was given to some people. There was great abilities that were given to some people because the perfect had not yet come. But when the perfect came, Paul said what? That which was in part was going to be done away with. Where's that? Where are we told that? 1 Corinthians 13, verse 8. 8, 9, and following. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Anybody know anything about 1 Corinthians 13?
I love it.
Well, thanks. I kind of like you too, I guess. Sort of. Depends. It's like Gina. Depends on what day it is. Sometimes I like you, but.
No, man, I love 1 Corinthians.
Oh, okay. You love 1 Corinthians. Okay.
Don't get me mixed up.
Don't get you mixed down. Don't get you mixed up. 1 Corinthians 13, beginning in verse 8. Charity never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether they be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. When that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. God's documentation tells us these things when the perfect is come, and right here it is. When the perfect is come, those gifts will be no more. Who had the ability to pass these gifts on to other people?
The apostles.
The apostles did. Could Simon pass the gifts on to other people? No. See, that was his whole problem. He wanted to buy that ability to pass the gifts on to other people. But it wasn't for him.
Now, Philip, though, couldn't actually pass it on.
No, Philip could not pass it on.
He manifested the power of it, but he couldn't pass it on.
He could not pass it on. He had the ability to heal, as we can see in the verses prior to this. In fact, in verse 7, for unclean spirits crying with a loud voice came out of them. Many that were possessed, many were taken with palsies. Those that were lamed were healed. He had that ability. When was he given that ability? Philip was a part of the 7. The 7 being the men who were chosen to take care of the widows in the first century. What we have come to know or come to believe is the first deacons. Okay? Who laid their hands on Philip and the other 6? The apostles did. When the apostles laid their hands on them, what did they pass on to Philip and the others? The ability to do things just like this. Exactly right.
I wonder if there's any grasp on how many actually received that power from the apostles.
It's hard and don't know.
I was just thinking, we talked about sorcerers. There was one time in the Bible or any place I remember where sorcerers actually did something that was magical. And that was with Moses, when they threw their sticks down and they became snakes, but that was through the miracle of God that allowed that to happen.
Allowed that to happen.
You know, people saw that and turned around and go start running or telling their friends that didn't
Yeah.
see the outcome of it. You know, they thought, man, they really did turn to snakes.
Yeah.
But
Okay. The snake that appeared out of Moses' rod. What did he do with the snakes? Devoured them. And so I believe you're quite right that was the power of God, and God allowed that to happen so that he can show the power that his snake had over that. And so so I have no problem with that idea. All right, so there are those today that they say they have this ability, but they cannot have this ability. The New Testament plainly teaches that, shows that. They cannot have this ability today. But what's the sad fact? The sad fact is there are so many people with itching ears who see these things, who want to believe these things, and say that these people have the great power. Which brings us back to the people of Samaria. Were they deceived by Simon? Yes, they were deceived. Why were they deceived? Well, let's bring in verses 10 and 11. So let's now read verses 9 through 11. God does give us the answer here. There was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery, and bewitched the people of Samaria, giving out that he himself was some great one, to whom they all gave heed, from the least to the greatest, saying, this man is the great power of God. And to him they had regard, because of a long time he had bewitched them with sorceries. All right. Here's the answer. How were they deceived? How were they, how did they come to believe that he had great power? The answer is right here. Notice first of all in verse 10. To whom they all. Okay, they all is referring to who? All the people of Samaria. Every single person, from the least to the greatest. And so that very next phrase, the least to the greatest, is meaning what?
Even the rulers and the pagans.
Okay. From the least important citizen all the way up to the highest important citizen. All of them were deceived by Simon. So much so that they did what? They gave him something.
Heed.
They gave him heed. What does that mean to give heed?
They believed him.
They believed him? They listened to him?
They held him up above themselves, I think. They held him in reverence.
Okay. They held him up. They held him in reverence. They paid attention to him.
They claimed that he was the power of God.
And they claimed that he was the power of God. Why would they claim such a thing?
Probably he told them who he is.
Because he had told them, and because he had deceived them. Look at verse 11. Look at verse 11. Let's read it again, and then somebody tell me what the meaning is. And to him they had regard, because of that long time he had bewitched them with sorceries. Meaning what? He amazed them for how long? A long time. For a long time.
He really lied to him for a long time.
He lied to him for a long time. He bragged to him for a long time. He deceived them with the trickery for a long time. And so after this, they said what? He must be what he says he is. He's a great man. Do we have people like that today?
Yes.
Who have deceived and bragged for so long that they have people follow him? He must be what he says he is.
I remember back when I was young in the workforce, working up the Forma, my supervisor said one day, he said, if Oral Roberts is such a great hero, what's he need a hospital for?
What's he need a hospital for?
We were building lots of equipment for Oral Roberts Hospital.
Yeah,
Right.
that came into about when I was in Oklahoma back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And, he was a big thing. You heard a lot about Oral Roberts out there.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, he's universities in Tulsa, and he was going to build that hospital. And we all looked at one another and said, what have we been doing for centuries? Combining faith and medicine.
And isn't he the guy that said God had talked to him and he's going to die unless you give me all this money so I can build a hospital? Yeah.
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 And that guy kept on and kept on, and he had a big following, a lot of people. And, you know, I even heard one fellow say one time, do you think that I can really be real? This individual claimed to be a member of the church, you know.
Right.
Well, after so long a time, if you repeat a falsehood enough times, you're going to start believing it.
You're going to start believing it. And so they started believing. The people of Samaria started believing it. And the sad thing is, people today start to believe it. You know, there was that lady who got on with my friend on Facebook and said, well, you've got to take him to see this person. He's got power, and it's documented. And she went on to say, I've seen it. I went to one service, and so-and-so was healed, and so-and-so was healed, so-and-so. And she believed that, and now he followed this person. Now, of course, my friend, as a member of the church, did not fall for this. Did not fall for it. But there are people who fall all the time. And that's sad. In fact, that's one of the things that we deal with consistently in Guyana. Benny Hinn's big down there. Anybody who comes and says he has voodoo power, boy, they're scared of that person. They are quickly deceived, and so many of us are quickly deceived.
These people that claim to be mediums.
Yes.
I've seen people that are, claim to be Christians, Catholics, whatever, are they actually missing something that they believe that that's possible? Somebody that, going to this person to talk to them, we're told that doesn't happen.
Exactly right. And, even stuff like that is trickery today. I mean, that's just, they look at you and they say, well, okay, there's Janet, she's blonde hair. I can see your mother, Janet, she must have had blonde hair. Right? Well, what color was your hair before you dyed it?
Not as dark as
Okay. But see, they use things just like that. It's observation. And from observation, they can trick people into believing certain things. Go ahead.
And then with those people who believe in the horoscopes and that kind of thing, how many people, what is it, 12 signs? Is that what it is? There's how many millions of people are born under each one of those signs? And they're going to tell you.
day. Bobby and I have the same birthday.
Yeah, and so
We're not a whole lot alike.
and if you tell them people, well, because this is your sign, you're going to have financial good luck tomorrow.
Yeah.
Somebody among the millions of people that were born on that day or having that sign are going to have that good luck.
Yeah, exactly right.
One of them, they're going to hit it for somebody.
Exactly right.
For somebody, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Somebody will have a lucky day, and I think some good fortune will be followed, but it has nothing to do with that horoscope.
No.
Well, here's the question for you for next week. We have so many people who are being deceived by this, who are being taken in by this. What can you and I do to help these people? What can you and I do?
Well, one thing I was thinking of, you gotta know the scriptures, and the people in Samaria weren't exactly banner students of God, so they were easily hoodwinked.
They were easy. Okay, so what can we do? That's what we're going to talk about. Now, we're going to continue to answer some questions about Simon. But we want to talk about this. What can we do to help people today who have been taken in by the Simons of today? What can we do? Teach them. Okay, and so that's where we'll begin next week, Lord willing. We want to extend the invitation. If we have anyone here this evening who needs to come, why not come right now, right together?